I could take a break from this world. Running on a hamster wheel, but searching for something I can't feel. I just wanna be a lost girl and fly. Take a breath, feel my wings spread, levitate above the ground and make eye contact with clouds. Now I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free. Finally, I 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 always stay dreaming, never imagined I lose my spark. Living in this crazy time, putting back the pieces of my mind. I know how to run from the dark and fly. Take a breath, feel my wings spread, levitate into the clouds. I'm so high above the ground. I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free. Finally, I wanna be free.
Race, conversations, and law enforcement. This is Moses' People Speak. So you see, thank you for a text message. I guess I was muted that whole time, so I'm gonna go back just a little bit if you don't mind. So again, welcome to an episode of Moses People Speak, take two. This is Terry Watson, the founder of Strategies for Justice. I got a text message, and I guess people who know this brother who's been like a godsend, Sean Kennedy. They could text me now saying, "Hey, you're muted." Oh man, good times. Well, like I was saying, my dear Lieutenant Sonia, if you didn't watch that conversation, please go ahead and watch that later on. We had a great conversation. She's out of Maryland. She's currently waiting to hear about her job status after doing her job. So we want to make sure Maryland understands that we are watching and we are staying tuned to what's happening with her case. Again, some good news. Nakaya Jones, in her situation, we had her on our episode not so long ago. And again, the Warren Heights Police Department will be actually restarting to give her back pay for her workman's comp. But the next thing we got to do is start working on her getting her pension. So, but there's some good news today with Nakaya Jones. Second, my dear sister, the mother of the movement, Carrier Horn, her decision for her her case is due on March 12th. So I'm asking everybody to send some positive vibes, some prayers her way. Um, because we also are keeping an eye on Buffalo as well. Last but not least, please register for the March Symposium. Registration is open now. The symposium will be April 8th, 9th, and 10th. We have some great speakers, some nice workshops lined up. So get ahead and register for the symposium. Now, on to our guest for the evening. We are honored to have what I like to call the boss of law enforcement, just to see her laugh backstage. Captain Sonia Pruitt is a Howard University alum, a writer, a mother, a retired police captain, a speaker, a professor of criminal justice, a social justice advocate, and a contributor to MSNBC. Like I said, she is absolutely the boss, and we are so happy to have her on board. So without that, please welcome our dear sister, Sonia Pruitt. Sonia, how are you today? Oh, you also muted. This time I can hear it.
I'm just following in your footsteps. I see how you roll. I'm like, I'm going to do that too.
It's funny. Most people don't notice. I have 3 screens going on at the same time, and on my left is my cell phone. I keep an eye on it once in a while to see if someone texts me, say, "Hey, you know what? Something dropped. You're muted." So I just peeked to the side. And I saw a text from Sean that says, "Hey, you're muted."
And I picked up my phone to text you, and I have the wrong phone. This one doesn't have your number, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So then I said, "I bet you Sean text him," and he did.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Sean is like our guardian angel. You know what? I tell you what. I know. He was on our show. He was the last one on our show, and we had a great conversation, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny about Sean. He says that an hour is not enough, so he always asks for the after party. But thank you, Sean. I know you're watching, so thank you for texting me. Much appreciated, my brother. So Sonia, welcome to Moses People Speak. This has been a long time waiting.
Yeah, I know. We got to do better, huh?
Yeah. Well, you're no stranger to this platform. You've been on twice. You were on one of our forums. You also appeared on our episode with the insurrection and the DC Capitol. You appeared online with some of the other law enforcement folks. But absolutely a pleasure. Matter of fact, you even made a commercial that we did. We were, if you haven't had a chance to see it,
I haven't.
Let's quickly show you the commercial real quick. Hold on, here we go.
Tell us what you really mean, ma'am.
Law enforcement officers should be role models, period. If you can't be a mentor, you shouldn't have that uniform.
I could take a break from this world.
All my blinders are taken off. I can see what you guys are talking about. Y'all don't see what we're talking about yet. Policing is the law enforcement arm of systemic racism.
Really right there. So that was the clip that we got you in, and again, it was a great conversation. So I'm so happy to have you back, just to have you here, speaking with you, because I do want to get into the Black police experience very much so, because I want you to sort of tell us what it's about. But before we get going, Sonia, tell us a little bit about yourself. Your years in law enforcement, things you've done with your in your career, and also some of the organizations you represented.
Yeah, so I am originally from North Carolina. I came to the DMV, the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area to attend Howard University. Once I got through school, I was like, I kind of want to stay. I like the area. I like the cultural piece. I did not immediately decide to be a police officer. I wanted to be a researcher. And so I did work in research at the Dental Institute at the National Institutes of Health. I found out I'm not made for that. I don't have enough patience. Okay. I'm still a science geek, but I didn't have any patience. So I went and worked for the U.S. Postal Service in administration. And then I was dealing with some racism there, because, it starts real early. It started in childhood, but here I am just trying to work. I decided to try to find another job where I could be around people. My father was a police officer, but I was not, it wasn't him that made me decide to go into policing. I wanted to be outside in the sunlight and be around people, and that was what made me become an officer. But about 10 years in, I realized my true goal was to speak up for my people. It took me about 10 years to I mean, I kind of already, I was settled in my Blackness, but it took me 10 years for things to get bad enough for me to realize I would have to take a stand. I was going to either capitulate and just, be quiet, or I was going to continue to speak up as I had already started doing. So I spent 28 years in the police department. I retired as a captain. I was the director of the community engagement division as my last assignment. I did a whole bunch of stuff in the police department, a public information officer. I worked in internal affairs. So I got a really good look at the entire department. And then the other things that I do, I am a professor of criminal justice at Montgomery College in Maryland, one of the top community colleges in the country. Very diverse, and they're open to hearing any messages concerning police reform. I am a speaker on the board of directors of the Law Enforcement Action Partnership that also advocates for police and criminal justice reform. And I am the founder of the Black Police Experience. Oh, and by the way, I'm the past president of the National Black Police Association. And I know you're going to ask me questions about BPX. So
you're absolutely. You and we spoke a couple of times offline, and I think we have a collaborative future ahead of us.
I know you're going to put me to work. That's what that means. That's like translated into you're going to put me to work. Okay.
Well, maybe similar to Sean Kennedy, after retirement, you're working more now.
Oh my God, he's tireless. Okay, he's tireless.
Yeah, but I want to talk about the Black Police Experience, sort of the reason why you saw there was why did you develop that? Let's start with that. Why did you develop the Black Police Experience?
Yeah, so as I was leaving the National Black Police Association as the chairperson, I felt dissatisfied. My plan, because it ain't always God's plan, but my plan was, okay, I'll run for a second term, and all the wonderful things that I envision a Black Police Association doing, we would be able to bear out. And that did not happen. And so I was not elected as chairperson a second time, but that was actually a blessing. So I said, just like when I left policing, I want to make a major impact on the community, in particular the Black community, because the Black community is the most vulnerable one in terms of interactions with the police. We're the ones losing our lives, right? So what can I do to extend my voice, expand, my way of thinking, so that people could understand that I have a great love and passion for the education of our people, so that we can be empowered. I want you to hear me when I talk about that. I want you to hear how important history is, how important to understand, especially for Black people and Black police officers, the intersection of race and policing. How can I do that? And so I decided to create the Black Police Experience as a result of that. And so what has happened is, not only am I getting opportunities to educate, but it's, there is also opportunities to partner. So it's not just me who's speaking on those things. I have other people who are researchers, who are retired and active police officers that I can call on to help me spread this message that talks about the education. Why are we where we are in this country right now with policing? Right. And why are we dying at the hands of the police more so than anyone else?
It's not talked about too a lot. Like, when we talk about dying at the hands of police, there's a conversation about police on police violence that usually doesn't get much attention, especially in the media. I know that, for example, the George Floyd Justice Act is the new conversation right now with law enforcement and reform, but there's a conversation that is not being had about the experience of police on police violence. And I say this because as last night, as you know, Lieutenant Sonia, who we had on last night, uh, when she was telling her story, it reminded me of another story that I had on my show about a year or two ago. And the conversation about the Black police experience, there's a level of violence that is being portrayed, but it's not being discussed. Is that something that you are looking into addressing, or sort of what do you foresee the Black police experience being able to do to shed light on that?
I see that with my voice, the voices of my partners in the Black police experience, that we get to talk about that. You know, I have this theory that if you keep talking about something, eventually it becomes normalized. So when I am, for instance, on MSNBC, and they ask me a policing question, if I can find a way to talk about systemic racism in policing, I will say it. I'm going to keep saying it because it is important for people to acknowledge it and stop acting like it does not exist. I mean, heck, we just had a riot at the Capitol on January 6th, and all of a sudden people have forgotten who the rioters were. And that they were white supremacists and extremists, and that they attacked the police and were calling Black police officers the N-word.
Right.
I mean, how do we forget about that? So I think that we should also normalize our experiences, which are very unique in policing. You talk about police on police violence. It's the violence is physical, the violence is psychological, mental, emotional, all of the abuses, sexual for Black police women. And so, yes, I think that there is a place for BPX to begin. And I say begin because when you asked me that question, I was thinking about Sonia Zolikoffer, who was on your show last night. She is the first officer that we have stood publicly behind since I created BPX in January.
Right.
Because her story is our story. Her story is the story of Black women in law enforcement, being hypersexualized. Oh, she must be sleeping with somebody. Oh, she's fast. Oh, she out here, you know, she slept her way to the top. You know, those kinds of conversations. Or she must be involved in misconduct of some sort. And then they make it happen. And they punish you for stuff that, you know, other people will be getting praised for.
Right.
So I do think that there is absolutely room for us to bring those conversations to the forefront, for Black officers to be highlighted, their experiences to be highlighted, so that the public can know. It's part of the history that I'm talking about. This is what happens to us inside. And so stop asking us what we are doing. We are suffering just like you are. I was on MSNBC with Roland Martin. I did not hear him say this, but one of my friends called me after the interview and said, you know, I felt like he made a jab at you because he made some comment about police officers not speaking out until after they retire or something to that effect. And I was like, well, I didn't hear that. And, you know, maybe it was a misinterpretation by my friend. And I never went back to hear, because when I hear that, I want to say all these 28 years that I was in the police department, the majority of which I was being beat upside my head by racism and sexism and sexual harassment, nobody was there to say, sister, we got you. So I suffered through that. And then I wanted to use my experience to help other people, and folks be throwing jabs at you like, oh, it was great when you was on the inside, but now that you're retired, well, your voice doesn't mean so much. I beg to differ. And you're going to be hearing a lot of my voice.
Amen. You know, I want to sort of dive into this conversation a little bit more, because you mentioned something that we talked about on this show multiple times, and that is when we have a police officer who does the right thing, and you could put that in any content you want. Thinking about Lieutenant Sonia, thinking about your Carrier Horns, thinking about your Nakaya Jones, your Monica Blakes, your Edward Raymonds. We can go on and on. We need, and I say we being the community, need to find a way to support those police officers. And I want to ask you this question. In your opinion, how can the community support those police officers that are doing what we are calling for them to do?
One of the things I was fortunate in having was community support. I was popular with the community, and I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way. It was just I loved them and they knew it.
Right.
And so when it came time for me to climb the rank ladder, they were my support. They were my advocates. They were in the chief's ear. Hey, when you going to promote her? Why haven't you promoted her? What's the problem? And so they kept putting pressure and pressure and pressure. I do not believe that I would have ever been promoted to captain under the chief that I worked under at the time had there not been community pressure. And so I think that the community needs to get to know those officers. Now, let me just say, not all Black officers are on the same page.
Someone had to say it.
Okay. And not all white officers are our enemy.
Right.
I had white officers who were my ally. They did what they could for me. They still sending me messages. They might not speak out either, but they're listening, and they will call and say, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I heard you." So you can't, stand behind everybody. But if you have community, if you have officers in your police department, whether they're Black or Asian or white or Latino, get to know who they are, what they're doing for the community. And if they are stand-up officers doing the right thing, stand for them. Put pressure on the police leadership to take care of them. A person like Lieutenant Sonia Zollicoffer should have never, ever suffered what she has in the Prince George's County Police Department. Never, ever. Somebody should have been there saying, hey, wait a minute. Are you really charging her for wanting to make sure that an investigation was done in integrity?
Yeah.
Where are these people? Yeah. And in addition, the community needs to put pressure on the Black officers who are in leadership too. Why are you taking care of your people? Or are you just getting a paycheck and fence straddling and saying what you think sounds good and it's all safe and cozy for you? That's what I would like for the community to do. And also vote. Put people in office politically that will make sure that you have the police leadership that you want.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I want to dive back into this because I'm really interested in the Black police experience. As you know, the Strategy for Justice was started because of the story of Moses Picard, Samuel Battle, who I really want to continue their legacy, right? So I want to ask you, what story for you stands out that highlights that Black police experience?
Oh wow, what a great question. What stands out for this is one of my passions, and people may not, people who watch your show may know these people. So my heroes are not famous police chiefs like Charles Ramsey or Willie Williams, although people know them because they're famous, in policing.
Right.
But those are not the people I look to. I look to people like a Nakaya Jones, or a Sonia Zollicoffer, or a Carrier Horn. I look to these, and I'm choosing women not only because it's Women's History Month.
Right. Which it is now.
Yes.
Or like I say,
and there are a lot of black male officers and leaders that I admire. But I'm talking about people who have put their reputations as professionals and as members of the community on the line to do the right thing and have suffered for it. And so those are the stories that move me. This is why I do what I do. For the younger officers who are out there, like trying to find their way, trying to figure out how it works. Who do I go to if I need support? Those are my heroes.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because you're mentioning, folks who in a way cross that thin blue line, right? And I always I've we spoke to Nakaya, we spoke to Cariel, we spoke, we hear their stories, and sometimes you say, "Oh my gosh, that's so unbelievable! Like I can't believe that happened to somebody." And what you find out is they're not the only ones. When Cariel was when she was doing her stuff on CNN and the other news stations, we were getting officers across the country contacting us saying something similar happened to me, and they were looking for a space to get their story out. Some of them didn't want to be like, in the news or up front, but they want to get their story out. And I wonder, is that something that you are looking forward to in doing the Black police experience? Is that something you really, I guess, will bring you some joy at the end of the day?
Are you talking about my own personal story or the story of other people?
A story of other people.
Yeah, that's, and that was why we made the statement about Sonia Zollicoffer. I'm like, it's really time for people to see what it is we're experiencing. They got a glimpse of it during January 6th. I think that's probably the first time the entire country was like, oh, wow, they treating officers like that, first of all, and they're treating Black officers that way. Yeah. So now they're like, oh, wait a minute, but they've been trying to tell us this. And so there's been story after story about Black officer experience. I was fielding all kinds of emails. I was started sending emails to other people like, can you interview with this person? Because I couldn't keep up with that. Right. If people, news outlets were very interested in our story. Right. So here's an opportunity for us to tell our story. It was difficult for me to navigate my police department. And I wanted somebody to hear me. I just wanted someone to say, I hear you. And there again were allies who would call and be like, I hear you, but they weren't going to stand with me out in public when they said they heard me. Right. And so I think it's important that we empower officers by letting them know that someone hears them. Right. We hear you, we understand you, and we're going to do what we can to help you, even if it's just to lend you an ear. Sometimes people just want to talk about it. If you just listen to what I'm saying, it'll give me some strength. There were days when I would go out to my cruiser after having suffered another microaggression or maybe even a real covert act. I would just go out to my cruiser and sit in the cruiser and close the door and cry. Just sitting there, so hope nobody walked past my car. And then I go back in like ain't nothing happened, because you can't let them see you cry, right? Because then they think, oh, there's something wrong with her. She's depressed. Next thing you know, you sit up in the psychologist's office. So, wow. You gotta maintain in front, but you need an outlet behind closed doors.
Talking about this, Sonia, I would love to know what is the Sonia Pruitt story like? What is, I love, what is one thing is, obviously I joke about this. Sean Kennedy is going to be the president of your fan club, and I'm going to be the vice president.
He is.
But I would love to know what is this on your Pruitt story? What was being in law enforcement like? What are some of the microaggressions you've seen, so on and so on?
Okay, I can't give you all the details right now because they coming though. But what I will say to you is, I said earlier that Black officers have a choice point. Something will happen. Mm-hmm. You got to make a decision. Am I going to be Black or am I going to be blue? Now, you were born Black, and blue is stands for the color uniform that police officers wear. Your uniform might be brown or, another color. Like mine was black.
Nice.
Funny, my uniform was black. But the blue is the way of thinking, the blue thing. So which one are you going to, subscribe to? And I decided I was going to be black. So what the turning point for me was I was a corporal, and I worked on what we call the beat team. So, beats are small geographical areas. The way my beat team was set up, I had a sergeant who worked opposite me. So we never worked together. It was the sergeant and the corporal, and he would supervise one day and I would supervise another. So this particular day I was supervising, I heard one of the officers on my shift call out on a traffic stop. So I went to back him up. When I got there, and then he's a white officer, and when I got there, he had the black driver of the vehicle out of the car and had him in handcuffs. So I said, oh, this dude is under arrest. And so one of the things I use, and he was searching the guy's car, which is fine. If you have someone under arrest, you're going to search the car. Incident, what we call arrest.
Right.
And so just to amuse myself, I often talk to the people who were under arrest, not my arrest, but And so I said, hey, are you under arrest? What you under arrest for? And he said, my license is suspended. Okay, in the state of Maryland, that's an arrestable offense. Not a problem. So the officer searched his car. Then he turned around and he took the handcuffs off and he let him drive away. And I said, did you just let a suspended driver drive away? There's a liability issue there. What if he gets in a car accident and someone's hurt or killed? I mean, you had him under arrest and then you let him, at least you could have done was towed the car and let him get home, and then get the car later.
Right.
And he said, I don't have to do that. And I said, our commander has said that you cannot arrest people on the scene and then what we call unarrest them without writing a police report and some other stuff. I said, but the bigger issue here is that you let a suspended driver knowingly drive away in his car with his license suspended.
Wow.
So the short story after that, because a whole lot of stuff happened after that. But the short story is all of a sudden I had a reputation for being a racist. I never mentioned race. I talked about policy. I have a friend, Orlando Lilly, a Black police executive here in Maryland, who says that racism will eat policy and training for lunch.
Wow.
Because you depend on policy to keep officers in line, but what if they're not following the policy? Right?
Wow.
So from that, I got this reputation. Harassment followed. All kinds of things follow that you'll learn about later.
But
it's
a hint right there.
it showed me that here I was thinking, I'm part of the crew, I'm doing my job. And this guy labeled me a racist, not because I had done anything wrong, but because it was probably him who didn't like Black people. And his actions, where I come from, they said hit dog or holler. And so he told on himself. And from that point on, my career changed.
Wow.
And it was a fight and a struggle all along the way.
Wow. And it seems like your story is one of you have a choice. You can just get along, or you could make, like I was saying, the right decision. And usually when that right decision is being made, I'm hearing over and over again, this has been the response from law enforcement. Wow. Well, I'm thinking about your next adventure. What do you I guess what is the future holds for the Black Peace Experience? I know you just got to go in January. You're still doing the whole planning the board out, but what is the future of the Black Peace Experience?
Actually, I don't have a board. I don't want to deal with nobody else's board ever again. This will never be a nonprofit. I don't ever want anybody telling me what I can and cannot do. I don't ever want anyone telling me what I can and cannot say.
Yes.
All decisions will be made by me. Okay. And if anybody is one of my partners and they don't like a decision I make, I'm okay with that.
Yep.
But it's mine. I don't
Right.
sell goods, so it ain't like I got to worry about, it's just the name of the piece, the partnerships, and getting out here and letting people know, like tonight, which is what we're doing tonight, letting
Right.
people know, the public know what it is they need to know about policing. And of course, I'm going to be doing some work with you,
Absolutely.
extending love and support to our fellow officers out there who are struggling. We're going to be doing networking, and I have a special project coming up that I can't talk about, but you know about it.
I know about it. Indeed.
I know you want me to talk about it, but we have a special project coming up, and
can't talk
everybody's
about it
going to
yet.
love it.
We
That's
can't
all
talk
I
about it
have to
yet. We'll keep that one for the folks later on. You know what? I'll tell you, because we're not going to talk about this project. You're right. But after hanging up the phone with you that day, I had total goosebumps. And, I keep this pen next to me at all times. And I have I kid you not, for my meeting earlier today, I have a stack, right? I keep next to me. And I just keep pulling them out, taking notes. And I remember after we talked, I was like, okay, who should we get on board?
Yeah.
We'll start turning.
Yes. And I haven't forgotten that piece. It's just, I decided not to do any teaching this summer. I'm taking a break from actual classes so that I can concentrate on all these things I want to do.
Right. I think that's perfect. And I'll say this too. This year we go to commemorate. We don't know how yet, but we go to commemorate Samuel Battle, his 110th year anniversary of being a police officer. If those don't know about Samuel Battle, police officer back in 1911, NYPD. This is the 110th year anniversary. We are trying to bring consciousness to the conversation, and I think about some of the stories that Samuel Battle told, and we were fortunate that he did an oral history before he died, and I've listened to it, I've read it, because sometimes listening and reading are two different things, right? He was interviewed by Langston Hughes, and so
I did not know that.
Langston Hughes was the person that originally wrote the autobiography. So we have so much information. One story that stuck out to me, and this goes back to the Black police experience. One story that he mentioned was that when he became a police officer, he knew that he wasn't going to be like, "Welcome along, brother. Come on and join the police department." He knew that wasn't going to happen. He also, because he was coached well by my great grandfather Moses Picard, who was currently a police officer, and he was like, "Hey, when you get here, this is what you're going to expect." So I want to talk about mentorship just a little bit, because when I was approached a couple of months ago from a young African American female, and she had the pleasure of actually having a conversation with you, Carriel, and Heather Taylor that night, which was wonderful for that young lady. At least I think. And you guys gave her some really, I remember y'all gave her some really good advice. And I remember thinking to myself, geez, wouldn't it be lovely if there was a space where someone that young is trying to enter law enforcement, they can have some really decent mentorship. So let's talk about what's the importance of the mentorship in policing. What would you say, Sonia, to that?
So that officers won't be blindsided. My father never talked to me about the realities of Black policing. The only thing he said was, "You sure you want to do this?" I'm like, well, what do you mean? If he never expounded, I kind of think my father's experience, he's passed now. I wish I had more time with him to ask him these questions. But I don't know that his experience was that bad, because he was working in Washington, D.C., the Metropolitan Police Department, which did have its problems. But I think he might have been insulated a bit by the fact that he was surrounded by so many Black officers, and because his job was community, I think they called it community service, where he worked in the schools. So he may not have actually had, the direct hits that some of us have taken. I don't know. But it's important that officers entering the Black officers, young Black officers, and then even older ones who are entering the space know what it is that they're getting into. I do not believe, and we did the NBPA, the National Black Police Association, did a webinar on hiring and recruiting, and we talked about this a little bit, but I don't believe that we have a lack of Black officers applying, or Black people applying to become officers. I don't believe that. I believe we have plenty that apply. They just don't make it through hiring.
Yeah.
I think that if we took the time, first of all, to prepare them for the process, that'll make them feel confident. They make it through the process. Once they become police officers, they need mentorship through their initial training, and once they get out on the road. Right. And I think there's plenty of room for us to do that, so that they will know what to expect. I don't believe that most people would turn their backs on policing, even though they know the realities. I think that would empower them. Like, okay, so I know what to expect, so let me, just make sure I'm thinking about that as I go through this.
Right.
But I think it is incumbent upon us to prepare young people, and like I said, older people, because people like I didn't become the police until I was 28 years old. I was considered an older officer. I think Sonia said she was in her 30s.
Yep.
So you can become an officer up until like in your 40s, pretty much, as long as you can do the job.
Right.
And when you are more mature, you bring that maturity to the job. But you still need somebody to tell you this is what you might face. And I'm going to tell my sisters out here right now, if you are thinking of becoming an officer, I'm going to tell you to keep yourself to yourself. You don't have to sleep with officers that you work with. You do not want to even start getting that reputation. And I don't want to hear this, the love of my life might be working. Yeah, they might. But there's probably a love of your life in another police department somewhere that, is safer to date. You don't want to have things happening they're adding to your reputation that are not true. Oh, she's loose. Then they use that against you. Oh, she doesn't have the bearing to be a supervisor because, she sleeps around. In the meantime, some of our sisters of other colors are doing the same thing, but they getting promoted up the ladder. That's that's my free tidbit for tonight. Since we were talking about Sonia Zollicoffer and mentoring, but she was already aware of that. And what happened to her was not something that she initiated. That wasn't a sexual assault.
Right.
Yeah.
And that needs, now I'm hoping that in the very, very, very near future that we're going to do something regarding sexual assault, because I know I just it's the evil thing in the room that's not being talked about. The first time I heard the story of a sexual assault in policing, it was Monica Blake out of Tennessee. Right. I remember she was actually, I believe, episode 3 of Moses People Speak. Wow. And I remember the first time I talked to her on the phone and hearing her story, and I was like, what? Because it's not, it doesn't get out there. It's not like, we hear about, there's Sexual Assault Violence Month, right? Which happens in April, by the way. And when there's a stigma in regard to sexual assault, always, but there's always this why didn't he or she, I won't say he or she, why didn't he or she report the sexual assault, right? And we know the reason why, because of the way that people are treated after they report it, or not being believed, and added into that trauma. But the dynamic of knowing that's happening in policing, yeah. So we gotta talk about it. I want to get to some of these questions that's popping in on the chat. I don't know if you can see them, Sonia.
I can't.
You can't. So let's go with this one here. So Lieutenant is online. She's watching. She's asked, did you have an officer who didn't want to work with you afterwards? And she's referring to the story you told about you sort of the arrest story you was talking about.
Yeah, I think they probably didn't want to work with me before that, but now they had a tangible excuse not to work with me. When I tell you that there was harassment after that, I had harassment from officers who were my junior. I mean, they felt comfortable harassing me. And when I would come to work, they would leave dirty notes on my door. I had Black females who were part of the harassing crew. Yeah. And so luckily, though, I was still popular enough that I had other officers who was like, we got your back. And we had a pretty tight, I had a pretty tight knit crew that I had, kind of entered policing with and come. So I had those people. But I don't know that anybody never backed me up, but they did make my life a living hell. And yeah, so
Wow.
I'm sure there was some officers out there who were like, well, I'm not going to work with her. And as a matter of fact, as I went from division to division, I would encounter officers who were skeptical of me being there. Oh, we don't think you're qualified. I mean, you would say it to my face. You'd be like,
Wow.
"Really? You bold, huh?" I was bold too, though. I had some words back, but yeah. So yeah, there was some tension all the way through my career.
Wow. We have another one here. Without Sean Kennedy question: knowing police agencies are white male dominant and can be very misogynistic in their ideology and behavior, what advice would you give to younger officers? And I think you sort of touched on this a little bit about your one tidbit that you gave away already.
Yes. Yes.
But,
okay, let me talk to my queens again.
Go for it.
We are queens. We are beautiful. People want us. We sexy, and we powerful. We can't help it. That's what we stand in. And so I'm saying embrace it, but you ain't got to share it with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. And understand that if you do, you are taking a risk that the next step is let's smear her name. And they will smear it like peanut butter on some soft bread. Okay. Mm-hmm. Before I could leave the police department, I decided to retire without talking to anybody. I'm going to retire. It was a shock and a surprise. And because it was a shock and a surprise, they had to attribute my leaving to something nefarious. So one of the rumors was, oh, she got caught sleeping around with somebody in the department. And so it was so uncomfortable, she had to leave.
Wow.
Really? I ain't slept with no clowns. Okay, no, that's not it. That wasn't even close to what happened. How about I decided I wanted to retire? That's all. It wasn't nothing else to that story except the fact that I was like, I want to do something different now.
Yep. Wow. The smearing of the name. We talked about that a lot last night, by the way. The concept of when you step outside the blue code, you're outside the blue code. It's like you're now outside, and so one of the things that I start pondering is because I'm having these conversations, Sonia, not just on air, but behind the scenes. Again, I think there are more police officers that talk to me behind the scenes than they do on air. And the one thing I'm noticing is a overlap of ways of smearing and retaliation. To the point where I think you could write like the book of retaliation, where you can just overall to say, here's how it can look like, here's how it can happen. But I want to get into this one question there's another question that came here. I think you sort of touched on this too, but did you get support from the Black female officers?
It wasn't that many of us. But yes, I did have support from Black female officers. I was disappointed in the lack of support from Black male officers. And even what I perceived to be some challenges that were some roadblocks that were placed in front of me. That comes later too.
Yeah. as my brother Kenny would say, we would probably do a part two.
Yeah. So yeah, I did, and you know, so I was the first Black female captain. So I broke the glass ceiling,
Hmm.
but there were two Black females in front of me who became lieutenants before I did, who could have very well broken the ceiling. One of them was forced into disability retirement. And the other one, I'm not sure what her story actually was, but I get the impression that she just decided it was just time for her to go.
Right.
So then there was me. And her story might have more depth than that. I just don't know it. So then there was me. And I'm going to tell you, I scratched and clawed and almost gave up even trying to become a captain.
Wow.
But you know, God is powerful. The universe, the energy is powerful. Yeah. You think you in control. This is my decision. It is not your decision. There's something else moving, saying this is what you need to do. And so while I was saying I'm not going to take this test anymore, there were other forces. And the forces for me would come by way of other people's voices. I had girlfriends in other police departments who were like, I know you're going to take that test. No, I'm not going to take it again. I'm just tired. Oh, no, you're going to take the test. And so people be in your ear. You got to do this for the people. It ain't just about you. You got to keep striving. You got to keep.
Right. Yeah.
And so I ended up taking the exam, and my final score on the exam was a 98. After all the testing, the oral boards and everything. And I cried because I did not foresee that score. But what that score did was put me in a position that I could not be denied without there being some trouble, some good trouble, but some trouble.
Right.
And so I am thankful to those people who stood behind me and was like, you know, keep pushing.
Yep. That's why it's so important. And I think that, you know, if, you know, again, I'm so happy that you're doing a Black police experience. And I love the idea that it's going to be self run. I think you and I talked about the power of not like I need to be in total control, but there's a power of not having to say, well, I gotta be careful what I say because someone might not like it and I might get in trouble with my organization.
Yeah.
There's a freeing piece that comes with that.
Yes.
So Sonia, you know, again, you've been in this space twice. You've answered this question twice, but I'm trying to figure out how can I spin it so it's not the same question for you. You know what the question is your message to America. But I'm gonna take this back, and I want to say, because matter of fact, if you want to know what Sonia's message to America is, there are 2 video clips that you can watch at any time. They're very clear, very straightforward. I might be posted the link to this chat. But thinking about tonight's discussion, I think I'm going to rephrase this question for you, and that is sort of what is your message to police, not America, but to police, and I want you to think about the gambit of policing. I think about Black police officers. We've talked about the responsibility of addressing racism. Where does that fall? There's an argument that says, you know, it doesn't fall on the shoulders of Black police. It really falls on the shoulders of white police. And I even I talked about that. I'll tell you this quick story because I usually don't tell stories on the show because it's not about me. But I had a conversation with a white sergeant recently we were talking about racism in police. Mm-hmm. And I bring this up because, you know, even in the commercial clip, you actually address this in the commercial clip. But he was saying, you know, he was asking me personally, you don't think that our department is racist, do you, Terry? And my response to him was, well, here's how I see it. If policing has a institutional racism problem as a culture, then I'm going to ask you as a police officer, what is your exception to the rule? right? How are you different than the culture? What have you done to separate yourself from the institutional racist culture? So don't come to me and ask me if you're a racist or your department's racist. Tell me what you've done to separate from the culture itself. It's like saying to myself, you're in a room of smelly people, but you're trying to tell me you don't smell. I want to ask you, what did you wash? What did you do to not smell? So I want you to ask this question: what is your message to the police in America, Sonia? And I know that's question as loaded as possible. I can give you a couple minutes to think about that one. Sharketti, bro.
I got an answer ready.
All right, I'm gonna spotlight you like I always do for these questions.
Okay.
So you go ahead.
We cannot. The Black people cannot solve a problem that we did not create. We did not create that other people see us differently, or that they feel like we are less than. We did not create racism. And so we should not be responsible for solving that problem. If white officers don't understand the race piece, I suggest that they read a book or go talk to somebody about what racism is and stop denying it. Because here's the problem here. Without an acknowledgement that systemic racism is the core of so many police issues and why we are fighting for police reform, without that acknowledgement, we cannot solve this issue. And it's not us who needs to acknowledge it. Ooh, my ring light fell down. Ooh, the spirit. It's not us who have to acknowledge that. We have already acknowledged it. It's the people who are perpetrating these actions of discrimination and retaliation, like in the Prince George's County Police Department, who are responsible for checking them damn selves. Okay? This is not our issue. But we are suffering because of it. And so we need acknowledgement in order to even begin. People be talking about healing. How are you going to heal something? I think it was Malcolm X who talked about sticking a knife in and, pulling out a little bit and the knife is still in. You cannot heal a wound until you take the knife out.
Yeah.
So I am saying to fellow officers, well, I'm not police anymore, but I guess I'll always be part of the family, black sheep and all. I'm saying you need to do your due diligence to find out why the Black community is screaming racism, screaming, stop killing us. Do your work and stop being in denial, because as long as you're in denial, we're going to keep coming at you with it. We're going to keep saying, this is your job. This is what you need to do. This is what you have to do to solve this problem. So if you want to stop hearing about it, then do something about it. That's my answer.
Well, it's like you had that one ready to go.
I always keep an answer in my back pocket.
I just, I appreciate that. I think the points that you're making tonight, Sonia, is so important. Again, I know you and we will definitely have some collaborative efforts in the very near future and also beyond. But yeah, I want to highlight the stories as you're getting them. I mean, if you're getting them, I want to make sure they're being highlighted. So, can you tell people where they can find more about the Black police experience?
Yes, you can find us on at www.therealbpx. That's as in Baker Paul X-ray. TheRealBPX.com. You can find us on Facebook at The Black Police Experience, and you can find us on Twitter at TheRealBPX.
I am 99% sure that I posted the link to that website in our description, but sometimes I don't trust myself, so I want to make sure that I did.
Okay.
And if I did, then great. But I also want to post a link. Oh,
Sean Kennedy, he already on it.
Sean Kennedy got those fast fingers, man. You know what? You know what?
We need to have Sean Kennedy Day. His birthday was a couple of days ago. Happy birthday again, bruh.
I, I called Sean Kennedy on his birthday to wish him happy birthday.
And he was
And
busy, wasn't he? Wasn't he doing some
yes,
work? He can't help himself. He's such a blessing. We love you, Sean.
we do. Sean posted it on Facebook. I'm going to post it. It should hit Facebook and the YouTube channel as well. And so.
And we appreciate you too, Terry Watson.
Well, I'm happy today for two major reasons. One, the news with Nakia Jones. As you know, that dear sister has been through a lot, and it's just happy to see God's plan come to pass. And I was very happy to be part of the conversation that we had earlier this evening regarding our group and things that we could do in the future. And I'm really, I'm already following the Black Police Experience. But Sonia, you have anytime you want to be on this show, you let me know.
Okay.
Anytime you want to do a mass production, you let me know. I will be your person to go to.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So people, please show some love for Sonia, and I want to remind everyone, if you haven't done so already, check out the Black Police Experience. It is if you want to follow Sonia, the Black Police Experience on Twitter. It's also on Twitter as well.
Oh, I have one thing, Terry, before everybody goes.
Yeah.
Make sure you follow us closely, because one of the things that we're doing now is a lot of testimony in the Maryland legislature in particular about police reform. And we're working nationally with the campaign to end qualified immunity. Well,
qualified immunity, we even dive in that conversation. Qualified immunity, I know Sister Heather Taylor, when I first talked to her, that was the thing that she was talking about ending. Matter of fact, when you Heather and Damon Jones were on the forum together, that was her message to America, was the importance of ending qualified immunity. And then if you I don't know if you saw Ben and Jerry's,
yes,
they had their piece about ending qualified immunity.
Yeah, I did a press conference with them.
Yes, you did. That's right. And I watched that too. Again, I just doing great things. So you guys gotta follow. You gotta follow Sonia here. I mean, when I said she's the boss, I meant that.
Oh, I'm all right. Tell my kids that, could you?
Will do. Well, everyone, thank you guys for attending. It's been a pleasure having you on, Sonia. Like, again, you have an open invitation here anytime. If you have any stories that you need to be shut out there, please let me know too, because that's like what we do as well. And again, it's been a blessing to have you. I'll give you the last word. Any last words?
Any last words from me are going to be surrounding. Make sure you love up on somebody, like for real. Take care of your people. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Consider getting the vaccine. Consider it. And just stay safe, please. We got work to do.
Yes, we do. Well, with that said, everyone do have a good night. So you can stay up for like 2 minutes before.
Yes.
All right, everyone, have a great night.
Good night.